Number two, I write down bullet points about everything that I want to talk about in that phone call. How many of you made a phone call to somebody hard to get, and when you hang up, say, oh my God, I didn't bring that up. And then you got to track that person down again. If you have the bullet points and you have the script, you won't do that. And then Fuqua told me, I anticipate questions that are going to be asked or objections that are going to be raised. And I think about how I'm going to describe product or service, how I'm going to answer the question or deal with the objection, and I write it down. And I practice saying it so that I know how to use my power phrase. That's worth a lot. And I can tell you, I now do that a lot. When I've got to make an important phone call, very often the impulse is just go ahead and pick up the phone. Get it over with. But I have found that if I will take the time to create a script and do what J.D. Fuqua did, my success ratio is multiplied immeasurably by having a plan, having a script. So that is what I mean by having a script, working a plan. I'm going to give you one other, and that is power phrasing. Right out of high school, I took a job selling waterless cookware. And I had a great sales manager who said, Gene, whenever you come to close the sale, I want you to memorize the close. It was written by a super salesman, and I want you to do it the way he says it. And when you get to be a super salesman, you can write your own. And something happened that puzzled me for years. I discovered that whenever I follow that script, my success ratio increased dramatically. But if I left something out or did something out of order, a big fall off in success. And I did not know why. Fast forward. Some years later, I read a newspaper article about Ben Feldman, F-E-L-D-M-A-N. Ben Feldman was the most successful most successful insurance salesman in history. He was not a charismatic person, never worked in the big market. But one of the secrets of Ben Feldman was power phrases. How to say something. And when I read that article, I created a folder called How to Say It. And when I hear somebody say something that is really effective, I write it down, put it in the folder, gradually make it part of my vocabulary. I even have a website, couldn't get how to say it, but I have whatyousay.com, and I've got about 200 power phrases there. Whatyousay.com. But I'm going to give you two of my favorites right now. First one is $1 million question to ask when somebody complains. And I'll bet you have to deal with complaints, do you not? Yeah. All right, here's a great question to ask. Person is complaining, maybe they're upset. Question is this. What can we do to make this right? They may go on again. I hear you, and I'm interested in making this work. Then ask the question, what can we or what can I do to make this right? Do not volunteer the solution. Let there be silence. Let the other person suggest what can be done to make it right. There are a couple of reasons, but one one is you are likely to be more generous than you have to be. And there is something qualitative that happens when you ask this question. This is it's a power phrase. It turns it from a complaint into a problem-solving exercise. We are working in this together to make something happen that pleases you. What can I do to make this right? If we had more time, I'd tell you how you use that question with a really aggressive, upset person. If you want to see me afterwards, I'll be happy to tell you, or you can call me. My phone number's on the handout. I'll give you another power phrase that I use all the time. And here it is. I learned this, again, going around repeating what other people told me. I learned this from a multi-millionaire in, again, the insurance business. He says, whenever I am in a transaction, whether I'm buying or selling, I ask this question: can you do any better? Now, invariably, when I tell people this power phrase, they almost, not invariably, but almost, they'll give it back to me wrong. Is that the best you can do? That's a different question. Can you do any better? And I will tell you that about 85% of the time, whether I'm buying or selling, I get something. First time I think I ever used it, I headed off on a trip to South America. And I was in Buenos Aires, and I decided to buy some luggage. Went into this elegant shop, and there were some beautiful pieces of luggage, and I thought, I'm going to buy that. Salesperson came up, she told how much it was. I was going to buy it anyway. But I said, she gave me the price. She said, can you do any better? I said, can you do any better? She said, well, this is a fixed price store. If you want to bargain, you go down to the market. I said, all right. She said, but we have a promotion right now. Right. That we'll give you, if you buy today, a box of chocolates and dinner for two at a restaurant. I thought, that's pretty good. For the first time I asked the question, she hadn't said anything about that before I asked it. I thought, I'm going to start doing this all the time. I come back to Atlanta. While I was gone, lightning had struck the irrigation system in my front yard. Serviceman comes out, said, I got some bad news. Lightning ran in, burned out all the electronics. I said, how much is that going to cost? He said, $715. I said, can you do any better? He said, sure. $795. You didn't say better for you. All right. Let me now let's try this little experiment. How much time do we have left?
We've got enough. Keep going. We're loving this.
Well, I'll tell you what. I will thank you. Thus encouraged. I will give you maybe one other before we then start taking names from you. Get the form out so that, and I hope I can remember what I learned from all of them. I'm going to give you two. Create a must list. Mary Kay taught me this. She said, before I leave the office every day, I take 10 minutes to think about all that I should have done that I didn't do, all that I hoped I could get done, but I couldn't. And I take out a sheet of paper and I write down the 6 most important things I must do tomorrow. I said, why 6? She said, because if you have more than 6, you won't do them. Force yourself to pick 6 musts. No more. You can have fewer, but 6 musts. That's a good exercise. And so you say, well, how do I decide what are the musts? Because in your business, you could have 20 musts, couldn't you?
Right.
30. So how? I'm going to give you, in time tactics, I have about 6 or 8 questions to ask to determine whether it's a must. But I'm going to give you one. I call it the ROI test. What's ROI stand for?
Return on investment.
Return on investment. And think of your time and energy as an investment. And so ask yourself when you look at everything on your list before it goes to the must list, if I do this, what kind of return on my investment will I get? And if you apply that test, you'll decide that some of the items are really not all that important, or could be pushed out maybe a little longer. The must list. Now here's how I do it. I don't put it on a piece of paper. By the way, when I interviewed Mary Kay, she had passed that along to all her salespeople, all 250,000 of them. And they printed little pieces of pads, if you will, at the top, the 6 most important things I must do tomorrow. And as you might guess, they were pink. Here's what I do. When I put an item in my iPhone, on my calendar, as I go, I will, in all caps, write the word M-U-S-T. So when I go to bed at night, I look at what I'm going to do the next day, and then when I wake up in the morning, and I can quickly determine what I must do. And then, yes, I'll tell you about the dream list. This is balance. If you're not careful, all you'll do is spend your life putting out fires.
Amen.
And so, one way to avoid doing that is to go through the exercise of creating a dream list. Write down on that dream list, and this may take you several days to think about and put it there. Write down all the things you would like to accomplish before you leave this planet. If you'd like to have a cabin in the mountains or a condo by the seashore, put that down. If you like to give money to worthy causes like I do, establish a philanthropy. If you want to learn another language, write that down. Want to write a book, put that down. In other words, a dream list. And here's how that works into your must list and your system. At least once every week, do something that moves you toward a dream. Something specific that moves you toward a dream. He that aimeth at nothing shall surely hit it. So put some dreams down and aim toward them. There's a legendary name at Georgia Tech. It's Homer Rice. Homer Rice was, for 18 years, the athletic director at Georgia Tech. Prior to that, he had been coach of the Cincinnati Bengals and coach at the University of Cincinnati, coach at Rice University, and prior to that, he achieved one of the highest, most amazing success records as a high school football coach in Kentucky. And I invited Homer Rice to give a lecture to my class in the College of Management at Georgia Tech. I had created a special topics course entitled Principles of Self-Management. And I thought, here's a person who would be a great example of self-management. He came into my class and he talked about his philosophy as a pro. And he told us that when he was a high school coach, he began to write down his dreams on 3x5 cards. Dream on one side, and then when thoughts occurred to him about how to reach that dream on the back of the card. And he started writing those dreams down. And he said, it's been wonderful as I've seen those dreams realized. And I said, do you still have those cards? Without hesitation, he reached inside his coat pocket and pulled out a little stack of cards held together by a rubber band. Oh yes, I still have them. I said, would you tell what's on them? No. But he said, I will tell you this. When I'm off somewhere, maybe waiting to catch a plane, I'll pull out my stack of cards. And I will work through them, and I will see the dreams, and I will visualize them happening. He said, that's a great pleasure, just waiting for it to happen. So have a dream. All right, let's now you can put me on the spot. Who wants to, you could just raise your hand. I can't hear very well, but Ray will tell